Hello and welcome back to IoT Innovation. My name is Chris Hare. Today we're going to talk about in-building positioning. We've been spoilt by GPS and location services for quite a while now. The problem is when we go inside and out of line of sight.
This episode of IoT Innovation is sponsored by Anritsu.
Telecom Careers, the #1 global telecom and wireless job board, telecomcareers.com.
Welcome back to IoT Innovation. I'm Chris Hare and I'm joined today by Mickael Viot, the marketing manager of Decawave in Dublin, Ireland. So welcome, Mickael, and thank you for joining me. Please explain a little bit about your company's involvement in building positioning and GPS. It's an interesting aspect that we've not yet covered in this series.
Hey, good morning, Chris, and thank you for the opportunity. So, yes, I'm the marketing manager at Decawave, as you mentioned, and Decawave is involved in the positioning business. So we're not exactly like GPS. GPS, everybody knows GPS. That's lovely to get your position when you're driving outdoors. But the thing is, people are nowadays, they're expecting the same level of services they're getting from their GPS when they move in buildings, whether it's for private use or for professional use, like tracking parcels in buildings or finding your favorite store when you go in a mall. The problem is that, as you may know, GPS only works outdoors because you need to have a direct view of the sky to be able to collect the GPS signals and calculate your position. As soon as you get indoors, the GPS is not working anymore. And so what happened, what the industry has been doing to try to find a solution is, okay, they try to use the existing RF technologies that are already available to us indoors. So that means it's mainly Wi-Fi and Bluetooth at the moment. So that's exactly what you get, for example, on your mobile phone when you're walking down a mall. The only problem, to be honest, is there's technologies have never been designed to achieve location. They have been designed to achieve data communication. And even if they can provide some sort of location, at the end, they're giving you an accuracy only of several meters. So if I'm back to the example of walking down a mall, that's sufficient if you're looking for Starbucks or McDonald's or any kind of shop. You will be able to spot it. But what if you're looking to a specific pair of shoes in a shop, or if I'm back to the industrial business, if you want to track the position of spare parts in an automotive factory, for example. Here, those technologies, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, cannot deliver the accuracy that is needed to track items and to guide you to items with a sufficient level of accuracy. And that's where the Decawave comes in. The founder of the company, Michael McLaughlin, is a veteran from the IEEE, and he has been involved in UWB standards for the past 15, 20 years. And a bit more than 10 years ago, he started to be involved in the 802.15.4a standard. That is a new physical layer targeted specifically at providing very accurate location and data communication at the same time. And that's exactly the standard that we've managed to implement in the Decawave chip. And the result is that with our technology, you get an accuracy of 10 centimeters with a very high reliability. So you move from several meters of accuracy to a few centimeters. So here it's opening a completely many new opportunities for the industrial, consumer, and automotive markets, which are looking for solutions for accurate positioning.
So that's interesting. I mean, the location of a mall, the location of a store, I get that. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of noise about iBeacons and the non-Apple version of iBeacons that use short-range Bluetooth and low-power, low-energy Bluetooth to try and supplement Wi-Fi and external location. How do these nodes get populated, and how does this become? You mentioned the IEEE and the standardization. How does the standards and the commercial juxtaposition of power really start to become a standard that people will use and that we can really unite around? How does this become relevant to everybody so that we don't end up with lots and lots and lots of different standards?
So again, those Wi-Fi or Bluetooth standards at the start, they have never been defined with the intent to implement location technology, the location functions. They have been designed for data communication, and the way it works with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth is most of the time is you're just measuring how strong the signal you're receiving is. That's exactly the way an iBeacon is working. It's broadcasting an RF signal, and based on if your phone can hear the signal loud, that means you're close. If you hear it pretty low, that means you're far. But what if you put a pillar between, or if you put a shelf in a store? It's not working anymore because it's based on what we call the signal strength. So that's the main limitation. Whereas with the Decawave technology, what we have implemented, some Wi-Fi signals start to implement that as well. It's called time of flight of the signal. So you're no longer relying on the strength of the signal, but how long it takes to the signal to go from point A to point B. And then I just mentioned that Wi-Fi starts to implement it. Some companies showed new chips for this purpose at Mobile World Congress last year. But without going too much into the technical details, those signals are what we call narrowband signals. And those signals are very sensitive to what is called multipass and interference. And unfortunately, that's exactly the real world environment, especially when you're indoors. Your RF signals are bouncing the walls, and so you suffer from what is called multipass fading. And when you have a narrowband signal, whatever you try to do, you will never be able to achieve high accuracy. And that's the difference with an ultra-wideband signal like the Decawave signal, because we're generating 2 nanosecond wide pulses. So it's not impossible, because nothing is impossible, but it's almost impossible that you will get a multipass that will be destructive to your main signal. So that's where the UWB signal is very robust to indoor environments and can deliver the high accuracy.
Okay, so let's pick up on that. I mean, one of the reasons why I started this series is that I see IoT as a very complicated umbrella that's really tough enough for people like us that have been in this industry for many, many years. And so the challenge I'm seeing, and we're seeing, and we've tried to explore through these interviews, is that if you're a young company, or even if you're a very big, mature company that is not involved in wireless, then IoT is completely almost impossible to navigate. And one of the challenges I'm seeing for location is exactly as you say, that everybody that is using a smartphone has completely taken for granted now high accuracy of not only the position, but the background data that surrounds that position. So the contextualized data related to your map. And people are making obviously strong comparisons or weak comparisons between, for example, Google Maps or Apple Maps. But the reality is we're at the kind of level of detail that the military didn't have 25, 30 years ago because of all this contextualized data. How do you see this evolving indoors, not just with your technology, but generally? Because to me, one layer is the position, and the next layer is, once you have the position, who's supplying and generating this data that surrounds that position information?
So from what we're mainly involved at Decawave. We started with the industrial space, and we're now moving into the consumer, including the retail. But we're a semiconductor company, so we're more like at the bottom of the supply chain. So we have some connection, of course, with the high level of the supply chain, but that's not our expertise. But you're completely right. That a main challenge here will be, is as usual, yes, who will handle the data. And here what we see is, so it's really per industry. So like the retail industry has its own system integrators, which are already delivering services like for targeted coupons, etc. So in fact, the location is not, what location is bringing is, if you can accurately bring an answer to the where the user is or where the product is, then you're capable of delivering a much more accurate information to the user. But it's not really changing the value chain and the way the data is collected or delivered. It's more a matter of being more efficient. And that's, if we're back to Wi-Fi or iBeacon type of system, that's a bit the problem. If somebody is entering your shop, that is iBeacon enabled. You just know that somebody entered your shop, but you have no clue where he is in the shop. Is he facing the jeans or is he facing the shoes? So you have no clue if you should send a coupon for jeans or shoes. And so again, so that's collecting an accurate location information will allow that. But again, no major change then in the way the data is processed. It's just a new level of granularity.
Okay. So
sorry to interrupt. So if I extend beyond retail, and I would say that we see more and more the IoT. As the IoT as it is today is answering two questions: what's happening, because you have sensors or that kind of information; when it's happening, because the information is timestamped by your microcontrollers, microprocessors. The problem you have at the moment is you have no clue where the event happened. And that's a major issue. I mean, if you look at, like, I don't know, let's take smoke sensors, alarm sensors in a building. Alarm sensors may be one connected example of connected application. But then if you start to put a connected lighting system, if you start to put a connected heating system, etc., if you start to have hundreds, thousands of connected objects in a building, if you're not capable of collecting the information of where the event is happening accurately, I mean, you can do it if you keep a manual map up to date. That's exactly what is done today. You take the map of your building, and you have people whose job is to just say, okay, we have set up the alarm sensor with the MAC address 1234 in this corner of the building, and that's fine because you only have a few connected objects. But think about what will happen when you will get hundreds, thousands again, or even millions of objects if you look at the scale of the city. You cannot expect to keep manual maps. So you will need technologies where the objects will, when you will turn on your thing, it will just pop up in your network, automatically connect to your network, and its position, accurate position, will be recorded automatically, even if it's a moving object. And that's really a very important piece of information that is currently missing to the IoT. And I'm not even talking about the big data and the implications for big data. It's the same.
Well, certainly, I've had conversations previously about Intel and the security they're beginning to build into their chips in terms of enterprise security, where as your laptop leaves a certain firewall or a certain ring fence, your data is no longer able to be received by that laptop, for example. I mean, I can certainly see enterprise and industrial applications that may already be beginning to embrace this. Can you give me some examples of maybe not the obvious things, obvious maybe to you and I, but applications and opportunities that you see for this that maybe would not be obvious to most people beginning to design a consumer IoT device?
Okay, so the consumer is one example, but at the moment it's the Internet of Thing. There's been a lot of hype around the Internet of Thing, and people had very high expectations, and some people started to be a bit disappointed because there's no real strong traction in the consumer. I mean, there is a traction, but it's not as big as expected. But if you have a look at what's going on in the industrial space, it's a completely different story. I mean, the IoT is already happening in the industrial space. That's really the first place where it's happening. The Factory 4.0, so that's a bit Europe-centric. Factory 4.0 is the definition of the future factories in Europe with all the equipment, spare parts, everything connected and exchanging data. The same happening in China with the 2025 initiative. I'm sure there's an equivalent in the US. In the industrial space, it's really big. Then back to your question in the consumer. So the one that you mentioned for enterprise is also, that's a kind of application our customers are exactly developing at the moment. We call it the secure bubble. So if you forget your laptop in a cab or at the hotel, and your laptop is being, let's say, more than 3, 4, 5, you can predefine this value up front. You define what's the size of your bubble, and so if your laptop is going outside of this bubble, you can get an alarm on your phone or on your smartwatch, or that it's creating a secure bubble. That's one. Then where we have a lot of traction with indoor location services, it's around the connected home, a bit like for the connected buildings, because there was also a lot of expectations regarding the home automation, the house. You remember, I think which year was that? This Microsoft vision of the house. I think that's almost 20 years ago.
Yeah,
And
and every year at Mobile World Congress, right from the days when it used to be in Cannes, we've had automated houses that everyone has been trying to show things in. And I mean, the ability to connect all these devices has been there for a long time. That's kind of why I started asking the question about standardization. I really struggle to see, with so many of these big companies fighting to lead the charge, that does not drive standardization. And I think that's kind of why I'm interested in the in-building positioning aspects, because to me, a lot of, as you say, a lot of the secondary data, a lot of the support data is already there, because that context and that content is already available. The piece that's missing is the high degree of accuracy in a building that we've become spoilt by outside.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm kind of wondering if you're seeing any really completely weird and wacky use cases in industry that may read across to consumer.
Yeah, definitely. So around the home automation, if you look at what companies like Smart Things are doing today, very nice company. I really like their products, and you can start to get some pretty cool home automation. But it's on their website, and there's no other technology as of today. They're using mainly motion sensors to detect your presence. And the problem with motion sensors is you need at least one per room. And if you take that, I don't remember the exact statistics, but if I'm correct, in the US, you have an average of 8 to 10 rooms in your house. So that means you would need to set up something like at least 10 motion sensors to be able to automate your house at the room level. So that's not very convenient. That's one thing. And the second thing is we're back to where the information is coming from. I mean, if you're moving those motion sensors around, if you're moving your smart plugs around, or your smart light bulbs, you will need to update your system, your application on your phone, to let the phone know, oh, by the way, I moved the smart bulb that was in the kitchen, I moved it to the living room because the one in the living room was broken or something like that. And so it's not very convenient for the user, because they still have to do a lot of manual setup and a lot of interaction. So in fact, what they're doing is they have moved the user interface from a physical user interface, being the light switch, for example, to your phone, where you get a digital light switch on your phone so you can turn on and off. But I'm back to the location. That means if you have 100 connected objects in your house, you will need to go through the user interface in your application on your phone, scrolling, finding the proper light, because your phone has no clue where you are and you have no clue where the light is. Right. So to answer your question, what we without disclosing too much, if you can accurately locate the person, and if you can accurately within the house, if you can also accurately locate where the things are in the house. We're back to the context awareness. That means the house knows exactly where you are. So without the need for motion sensors, our technology, I did not enter too much into the details, but let's say you could set up only like a beacon that you would drop in your house. It could be part of your appliances, or it could be, like a small set-top box or whatever it would be included in. And then you would just walk around again with, a small wristband or integrated in your smartwatch. And so the house would know exactly where you are and could completely react based on your position, taking care of the lights, of the smart locks, of the heating system, of, if you're watching the TV for breakfast or listening to the radio at breakfast in your kitchen, then you move back to the bathroom to brush your teeth, the radio can just follow you because the house knows exactly who you are and where you're going. That's the kind of futuristic scenarios that are now possible with our technology. And I'm not even talking about the home robots or the robotic lawn mowers, all those that would benefit from location awareness. That's a crazy scenario we're supporting our customers with at the moment. So that's pretty exciting to be involved in those.
Yeah, just to finish up, speaking personally about IoT, one of the positions I've come to realize is that as with any user experience, IoT should be about a minimal invasiveness into your life. So if a device is really going to become useful and maintain its useful position in your life, it has to be almost invisible. And that's one of the problems I have with a lot of the IoT consumer devices I see out there at the moment, is their presence is something you have to learn and to understand. So the education process is too long. And it's just not useful enough. I mean, we've talked on previous programs about things like, Amazon Echo and the Hue lighting system that Philips have launched. I had an example last night where I asked the Echo to switch off the lights in my family room, and it only switched one of the two lights off. And that's it. I mean, it's still really cool that it does it, but it's annoying that it didn't do what I asked it to do, because it should know better. And I think that's the context piece that we're still working on, is how do we get it to the point where it does what you think it should do automatically. And I think, again, in building, I think that position is definitely a big component of why that's not working right yet. So personally speaking and professionally, I'm really looking forward to seeing more rollout of your capabilities and in building position being much better. What's your prediction of the time frame of this? How long do you think it's going to take for this to start to get much more ubiquitous?
So we're already engaged with some major companies which are pioneering in this field, and so I would say we're at the stage of the pioneers at the moment that should announce products based on our technology early next year.
Okay.
So we're the pioneers. Then don't want to be arrogant, but when you see what they can do, I think it will be very attractive to the rest of the industry. So, but yes, to become really mainstream, I think it will nothing before 2017. But next year should be really the beginning of context-aware applications.
That's great. Well, let's keep in touch outside of this, and I'll be at both CES and Mobile World Congress, so maybe we can set up to meet, and I'd love to maybe do a follow-up interview looking at some of these products that as they start becoming announced.
Yeah, definitely. I'll be at CES as well, so happy to meet you there.
Great. All right. Well, thank you very much, and that concludes today's interview for IoT Innovation. Today, my guest has been Mickael Viot, the marketing manager at Decawave, and we've been talking about in-building positioning. Thank you very much, and see you next week.
IoT Innovation is a production of RCR TV. To reach Chris Hare or suggest a show topic for IoT Innovation, you can reach Chris at cbh@ntete.com. To find out more about IoT Innovation and all things wireless, visit rcrwireless.com.